Hola amigos y amigas, bienvenidos nuevamente a este espacio. Tenemos la visita de alguien más que accedió al llamado y es alguien que está muy involucrado en la lucha libre a nivel europea y a nivel mundial. Estamos aquí con Andy Quildan, es el dueño y promotor de RevPro, Revolution Pro Wrestling. Hi Andy, it's nice to have you here. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very good, thanks.
Great. Andy, this is a big summer for European wrestling fans. It's also a big summer for RevPro. August might be the biggest month in RevPro history so far. You have a lot of big events, amazing cards with talent from different promotions worldwide. You even have a show later by the end of August in Germany. So it's exciting. And we wanted to do some questions to you.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time to be just around the entire wrestling scene in general, and we just hope that Revolution Pro Wrestling can contribute to that and add to the excitement for fans all around Europe and all around the world.
Let's start from the beginning. So when did your passion for wrestling started?
When I was about 4 years old, I was
Mhm.
just it was the first thing that was able to grab my attention. It was just the larger than life characters, the bright lights, just everything about it. It's a very sensory thing. It's perfect for a child. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I can't remember my life without wrestling, really. So yeah, I guess that's it. And that's a short answer. Used to go to my aunt's house every week and watch it because we never had Sky TV, which is what it was on in the UK, which is a kind of a premium TV service. We never had it when I was growing up, but my aunt did. So my aunt got to see a lot more of her nephew than she probably was expecting because I'd go there every single week, watch WWF, and it just, like I say, from that just spiraled to where we are today.
That's awesome. In my case, it was also when I was a child, and I believe many wrestling fans that are still fans to their till they are all adults is when they is what it's because they started watching wrestling as kids, and it's really something like you mentioned, something with the like sensory experience. You know, the attire, the music, the lights. It's really cool. But then you just became more than a fan in wrestling. You started participating in the industry. So when and how was your first involvement in the industry?
So I want to say I'll be like 16, 17 years old when I first got involved, maybe around that age anyway.
Mhm.
I don't age myself too much, but I wound up going to watch British professional wrestling shows, and I knew it wasn't the big American wrestling. A lot of it was low rent, low quality. But I just loved professional wrestling. I just loved it. So it didn't matter to me that it wasn't really any good. Um, I just wanted to be around professional wrestling. Um, I guess one of the beauties of wrestling then and still now, independent wrestling is very accessible. It's very easy to talk to people. You start hanging around shows, you get to be able to help out, etc., etc. And that's kind of what I did. But really, I got in via a company called FWA, the Frontier Wrestling Alliance, who they actually were delivering a different product to anything which was going around the UK at the time. They're the first promotion or first independent promotion that I ever saw that ever took care in production. They had entranceways, the wrestlers had original entrance music, they had defined characters, and they had storylines. The shows that I used to go to watch when I was a kid, you might get a main event match, and you might get wrestler A challenges wrestler B to a street fight next time you're in that city. They come to the city 2, 3 months later, and it's a completely different crop of wrestlers, and they forget all about everything they promised. So even if you wanted to be invested in the stories, you couldn't be invested in the stories. And in many ways, when you don't have production, when you don't have a lot of the advantages that the big American style professional wrestling has, stories are key. And FWA had that. And basically, I got involved refereeing with them. I did a referee course with one of my friends who I used to go to watch shows with at the time. Became a referee, refereed up and down the country, all around Europe. You know, and was fortunate enough to work with some of the biggest names in the industry, learning the craft, learning about the business, the way it worked, trying to be a student of the game, knowing that I needed to be multifaceted, multi-talented, multi-skilled. So I needed to know how to put up a ring. You know, I needed to be able to do, you know, any aspects of it, basically. And from there, I guess my next port of call was I became a booker, whilst I was a referee simultaneously. Being a booker was almost a natural transition, because I watched a lot of refereeing. Because I was refereeing all over the place, I was able to make a lot of connections, a lot of contacts, but I was also able to see a lot of different wrestlers who, you know, in those days, wrestling wasn't as easily accessible as it is now. The internet was in its infancy in terms of promoting, and FWA was one of the first promotions to start using the internet to promote. But if you lived in the South, you would never get to see any of the wrestlers up north. If you lived in the Midlands, you'd never get to see anyone in the North or South. So, you know, where I was refereeing all over the place, I was able to see wrestlers from all these different parts of the country, all these different parts of Europe. And I was able to say, this guy would work well with this guy, that guy would work well with that guy. And I was able to produce shows which were interesting and exciting and entertaining and providing something a little bit different. Then again, just long story short on this, from booking, I went to promoting, and that literally was out of necessity. I was spending someone else's money. We didn't agree on the philosophy of the promotions. So to begin with, I was still promoting shows under that banner, which was IPW UK. So I was promoting shows under that banner. The owner was also promoting shows under that banner, but they were very different in terms of, you know, quality, in terms of what the message we were trying to send to the fans, etc. And then it kind of reached a head whereby we can't both be doing this under this brand name. So that's where Revolution Pro Wrestling was born. And that takes us back 12 years ago. And really, since I became Revolution Pro Wrestling, it's been full steam ahead. And when I say about being multi-skilled, I literally fulfill every single role, you know, from the video editing, commentary, I've done ring announcing, refereeing, I've helped produce the music, not make the music, but produce it. I've made music videos. I've dabbled with graphic design, all the bad graphics, the ones what I make. But, you know, you just have to do all these things as a small business in order to be sustainable and in order to succeed and in order to move forward. It's a lot of work, but when you've got a passion and a love for something, it doesn't feel like work. And like I say, like it's really a lot of the stuff. Really, all I want to do, I'd love to be able to just book shows, love it. But unfortunately, the only way I'm able to do that is by creating a platform for me to be able to book, and that's what Revolution Pro Wrestling is. You know, that's all the different strands of it: the training schools, the on-demand service, the merchandise. You know, all of those different strands, I kind of work with, run myself to the ground with, but I do this because I've just got this love for wrestling, and I've got a passion and a drive, and I recognize the only way for us to move forward is by someone standing up and saying, let's go and make it happen. And if that someone has to be me every single time, that person has to be me every single time. And that's where we are today.
That's great. You just told us the story of how you decided to create RevPro. I didn't know about that. I did know that you had experience as booker in the past, but I didn't know that was the catalyst for the beginning of RevPro. That's cool. And also that you have this experience, like you said, multitasking. I believe it's really important for an owner of any business to know how different departments of your business operate, so that you know you have a global view of everything. And in your case, I believe that helps and has been really insightful what you just told us. And to be more precise, I believe that all this experience can tell us why RevPro is still alive. And at this point, for me being the top promotion in Europe, and it's still alive for over 12 years, and now we're celebrating the anniversary show in August. So that's really cool. Do you have any moments that you would like to highlight of your not exactly of your promotion, but of your work as promoter during the years?
Well, I mean, there's so many memories over the years, and there's so many things where I look at, and I think one of the things that you said is about the longevity, and you know, talking about the being multi-skilled and understanding the different roles, and that's an important part about creating that longevity, and I think that you also learn a lot from your mistakes, and I think that, you know, I could sit here and I could champion my successes. But I feel I remember a lot more my mistakes. I've learned a lot more from my mistakes than I have my successes. So, you know, I look over the years at stuff that has happened, and I'm like, you know, there's nothing in particular that stands out, but there's been moments, and there's been moments whereby I've kind of felt like this is the worst thing that could happen to me. This is the worst thing that can happen to RevPro. This is the worst thing that could happen to the job. This is so hard. This is, you know, almost impossible. And then you get through it. And when you get through it, that's when you realize that it's not so hard. You don't have to be as worried about these things. And, you know, and I think about the big moments really are the milestones. And I'm not necessarily saying everything went wrong, because a lot of stuff goes right, but everything's a lot of work when you first do it for the first time. So I remember when I first used to do my shows, I used to run shows in Sittingbourne. When I ran one of those shows, I'd be done for a week. So I'd be exhausted. You know, I wouldn't be able to think straight. There'd be weeks and weeks, perhaps months of preparation going into these shows. And then my next step up was York Hall. That was a big learning experience for me. When I did that, the Sittingbourne shows, all of a sudden, that used to wipe me out for a week after I did it, I got to a stage where I could essentially just do them in my sleep, you know, and I could just do the show, and the next day I was fine, you know. But then when I was doing York Hall shows, I was feeling that same effect of being exhausted, you know. And then the next phase was, you know, when you go to bigger than that, you go to your ice arenas, Crystal Palace National Sports Centre, Copper Box Arena, and you do those. And when you do those, you then get that same sense of overwhelm. But along the way, you learn best practice, and that's how, you know, just even like if you look at, I dread to think, you know, that the paperwork that we used to have back in the day, compared to the paperwork we have now, is insane. You know, I hate to think how we managed to get past health and safety officers with our risk assessments the way they were, when you look at the attention to detail that we have now. But it's just a case of refining it over time. So like I say, there's not really anything that I don't want to sit here and go, we've done this, we've done that, because we have had a number of moments where what I'm very, very proud of, where I can sit there and say, oh, it was great when we had Kurt Angle and Zack Sabre Jr. That was a great moment that we want to talk about. But the reality of the situation is this whole thing has been a journey, and every chapter in that journey has been as important, if not more, than the chapter before, or the chapter that follows even, because it really is. It's, you know, the lessons I learned 12, 11, 10 years ago are just as pertinent today, and it stops you making those mistakes. So, like I say, it's essentially looking at those milestones. And I hope that answered your question. I know I haven't really picked any specific moments, but yeah, that's kind of the way I view things, you know.
It's like the evolution of RevPro. And now I want to enter to this part of, during the years, you had many alliances with different promotions around the world. And if I'm not wrong, the first time that RevPro got inside the Copper Box, which is the bigger venue yet, hopefully Wembley Stadium soon. It was with, so that was with New Japan for the first Royal Quest, if I'm not wrong. But
Yes.
I suppose that was a really headache for you in the time. But now you've done a few Copper Box shows so far, and now anniversary show returns to Copper Box. But can you discuss and tell us about your relationship with other promotions, past, present?
So look, I think Revolution Pro Wrestling across the years has been known for some of the one of a kind, you're never going to see it anywhere else in the world matchups. And I think a big part of that is because we try to keep good relations with as many different people as possible. And throughout the years, we've worked with many, many different promotions. My philosophy on working with other people is if you can do good business for both sides, so important. You have to recognize there's many people who are bigger than us who can help us, but can we help them as well? And can they recognize that we can help them? Because if you both have that mutual respect for one another, that's what helps the growth of the partnership. And I'm very aware that, in the early stages, you kind of have to prove your worth to your partner. But then obviously as time goes, everyone grows more comfortable, more confident with one another, and things just get better and better, and things progress, and you can explore new strategies and new ways of working together. I guess the key relationships we've had over the years have been New Japan Pro Wrestling, who's been our partner since 2013 when we first brought Jushin Liger to the UK for our very first show at York Hall, and they really have been a great loyal partner. And we've been able to create some great moments alongside them. And as you alluded to, yes, the first time we ran Copper Box Arena was with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The first time I ran a bigger venue, those ice arenas, that was in conjunction with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So and I think it's quite ironic, or perhaps poetic, that now when we're running the Copper Box, we're able to do that. Firstly, because of the experience working with New Japan Pro Wrestling, but secondly, because of one of our, I don't want to call them official partners, but I definitely call them friends in AEW. And if it wasn't for AEW showing the ambition to run Wembley Stadium, then we wouldn't be running the Copper Box as a standalone Revolution Pro Wrestling show. I said this last year when we ran the Copper Box as RevPro as a singular for the first time. I said, we could have run a smaller venue and just aimed to sell out. We could have run York Hall. We could have run Crystal Palace, which would have been a bit more of a task, but I still believe we would have sold out. Or we could have just looked at what AEW did and just go for as big as we can and dare to dream. That's what we always say to the kids at our training school, dare to dream. So why don't we take our own advice? And that's what led us to the Copper Box. And we've had really good relationship with AEW, using their talent, helping out with footage, etc. We've helped WWE with footage, but the difference between AEW and WWE is that everything with WWE is all very much one-sided. What can you do for me lately? Whereas I feel like AEW, it's a lot more. There's a lot more of a working relationship in terms of they do genuinely care. Obviously, their product. For them, that's their core business. That's what they worry about the most, the same way we worry about our business the most, right? But they do care, and they do want to help, and they do want to work with us. And it's not just a case of, waiting till they need something and then reaching out, So I think that's great. Obviously, recently we've started working with CMLL as well, who've been a natural partner for us. We've kind of had an unofficial relationship with CMLL throughout the years, but over the last, 18 months, it's become more official, and we're doing a lot of good stuff together, a lot of exciting stuff. And I think one of the most exciting things about developing these relationships is the fact that we are able to bring stuff to our fans on these shores that otherwise we wouldn't be able to bring something unique that, I don't think people realize how lucky we have it in the UK, because we're getting a chance. And I just think about myself as a child. If I had these opportunities when I was a child, I can't tell you, it'd blow my mind. I just look at the last Fantastica Mania show, real life Mystico, competing in the main event, the legend Atlantis, just so much great stuff. And obviously you got the exciting young flyers like Neon and Mascara Dorada, but seeing those people in the flesh. And I look at the RevPro, and here's a moment for you, actually. I'll go back to a previous question. One of my highlights was Bret Hart, who was one of my heroes, being able to work with Bret Hart. And we did a match where it was Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Marty Scurll, and Bret Hart was the guest of honor at ringside for the match. And at the end, he punched Marty and put him in the sharpshooter. And then he raised Tanahashi's hand, and Tanahashi's like, stop. And then Tanahashi played air guitar to Bret Hart's theme music. And that was a cool moment. It was so cool. And, as wrestling fans, to be able to see stuff like that in the flesh, in person. And that's what the beautiful thing about independent wrestling is, just so up close and personal to the action, that you're a part of the show. It's not like when you're in these huge arenas where you're watching the show almost from the outside looking in. When you're in this independent professional wrestling environment, you are a part of the show as well. And it's just so fantastic. And I think that's one of the best things about these partnerships, being able to deliver those almost once in a lifetime moments like that. And also to be able to give our wrestlers an opportunity, to give our wrestlers a platform, to open the world's eyes to wrestlers that they otherwise wouldn't have heard of. And also to help give our guys opportunities. Like, I will never, ever, ever take credit for any wrestler's success, any wrestler who's gone on to go to New Japan, go to WWE, to go to AEW. I'd never take credit for their success. All I'll say is we helped open the door and we gave them a platform. They did the rest themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I believe RevPro has had some of the most iconic moments in the recent history of not only British wrestling, not only European wrestling, also worldwide wrestling. You have mentioned some. You highlight one that I didn't even remember, but yeah, you're right on that one. Because I always remember, for example, Kurt Angle versus Zack Sabre, or I remember that match between Jushin Thunder Liger and Will Ospreay when they had the suit. Those crazy moments were possible because of those good relationships that you said before. Just this year, we've seen talent from CMLL in Fantastica Mania. We've seen talent from AEW with the surprise championship defense of Orange Cassidy at high stakes. New Japan talent, Zack Sabre Jr., for example. And now we are entering to August. We'll have big events in August for RevPro. We start with Summer Sizzler in the York Hall. And you just announced in commentary that MJF will be live in the show, and he will have a match with Michael Oku, possibly with the AEW American Championship on the line, because he needs to defend the championship before in CMLL in Arena Mexico against Templario. But if he succeeds and retains the championship, it will be a title match. And there are also exciting wrestlings and matches that will have consequences for the anniversary show. So how has been the process of building the card for you?
It's always, every show you do is a challenge, and especially when you're building towards something and you're trying to fit as many pieces in as possible. So it is always a challenge, but it's also a pleasure. And I try to attack every show I do as a wrestling fan. I always try to think, it doesn't always come off the way you want it to come off. I just think you go into everything with the right intention. You go into everything as a wrestling fan. You go into everything remembering the bigger picture, what you're trying to achieve, and then stuff just kind of falls into place. I'd say there's a big difference between matchmaking and booking. I think that for a period of time, Revolution Pro Wrestling was known a lot more for its matchmaking than its booking. They're both skills. And they both overlap and cross over with each other. But now I feel very much, I'm going to say since 2020 really, I feel very much more of a booker than a matchmaker. One of the reasons for this as well is because where we've increased the amount of shows we run, I'm able to be more of a booker. When you're only running one show a month, it's a lot harder to be a booker, because obviously your focus is on, we have to sell tickets for this month, and therefore your focus is on what matches are going to generate ticket sales. Where our schedule is such, where we're pretty much running on a weekly basis, on average across the year, we're running on a weekly basis. Like, for example, now we've not got any shows for 2 weeks, but then at the end of the month, we've got the 2 shows in Germany and 1 show in London. So those 3 shows fill that gap, So with all these shows, it's a lot easier to be a booker and focus on the stories that you're telling. It can also be harder because obviously you need to work out how you'll get into each point and where you want each point to peak. But when we've got something like the 12-year anniversary show at the Copper Box Arena, we know that's a focal point. We know that's what we're working towards. One of the challenges perhaps with this Summer Sizzler event has been the fact that we are still working towards the Copper Box, and it is very much a step on the journey. But at the same time, it's at York Hall, Bethnal Green. It's MJF versus Michael Oku. It's a huge, huge match. And as I'm sure you can see from looking at the card itself, my philosophy, and it's been the same throughout. And I look at shows, Angle Saber, Vader Ospreay, the shows with the big main events, which are going to draw regardless. I could become complacent. I could look at it and say, Oku versus MJF is going to draw, and just put whatever on the undercard. But that's not my style. My style is we're going to put on the best card we can for the fans. And we're going to put on the most exciting card we can for the fans. We're going to get people talking. And not just that, we're going to do it whilst thinking about the 12-year anniversary show and having that in mind. Everything's gearing, make no mistake about it. August 11th at York Hall, Bethnal Green is going to be an absolute spectacle, but we're all gearing towards the Copper Box Arena. And I think you said earlier that August could be the biggest month in our history, and I think this whole year is the biggest year in our history. But we aim for every year to be the biggest year in our history, and we're certainly tracking for this to be the biggest year in our history. The Summer Sizzler show obviously is doing great sales at the moment. Obviously with the announcement of MJF and the full card, Copper Box Arena, we're neck and neck with where we were last year, which I think is a big achievement given the fact that we were going into last year's show with that legendary Shingo Takagi versus Will Ospreay match. It was I think it was either the fifth or sixth match of their series. They'd never been rated below a 5-star rating from Dave Meltzer, and it's just a match which is going to sell. It's going to sell tickets. It's one of those dream matches that people got to see live in the flesh. First time it ever happened in the UK. But this year we're going in with Michael Oku versus Luke Jacobs, two homegrown stars. I think that says a lot about RevPro. I think that says a lot about how we've grown and how we've marketed our talent to get to that stage whereby we're headlining this show with Oku versus Jacobs, and it's doing neck and neck with Shingo and Ospreay in terms of ticket sales. And I genuinely hope with all the added eyeballs that this Summer Sizzler show is going to bring, I hope it brings even more eyeballs to the Copper Box, because it's going to be a special event and we want it to be the biggest Revolution Pro Wrestling show of all time. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's focus. We've got to keep our focus on. We've got to know what we're focusing on, know what we're heading towards, and then doing everything through the eyes of a wrestling fan.
That's awesome. Now it's important to mention what you said, that what happens at Summer Sizzler will have direct consequences in the Copper Box show, because we've seen the card. You guys announced it earlier today. There are big matches for Luke Jacobs, big match for Robbie X, who will also be competing in the CMLL Grand Prix later this month. We are seeing a rematch between Ricky Knight Jr. and Sasaya. Danny Luna will be defending the championship against Nina Samos. There's also this, we don't know who will face Danny Luna in the Copper Box yet, because we know that she will defend the championship in the anniversary show, but we don't know yet. Or if it's Nina Samos who goes defend the championship in there. So that's also an interesting part. And we have this really cool Fatal 4 tag team match to be the contenders for the tag team championships against the Wrestle Young veterans. And also the storyline between the Sunshine Machine, that if they lose a match, they will have to stop working as a team in RevPro. And this special match, which I believe it's something really nice and something really cool in memory of James Castle. That I believe that's something really cool to have two friends of him wrestling in the show. That will be a really emotional moment. And then so far for the anniversary show, we have Hechicero versus Zack Sabre Jr. Their third match. This is like the breaking point for both of them. We know that Neon will defend the Cruiserweight Championship. So it's still building, and also it's important that the main event this year will be not a big international dream match, but will be a championship match for the top prize in RevPro between two of the best British wrestlers right now in the world, which are Michael Oku and Luke Jacobs. I believe that's also it symbolizes the high moment of British wrestling right now and of RevPro itself. And also you have a show in Southampton, I believe, in 2 weeks, also or 3 weeks, and then you have
week before the copper box, yeah.
yes. So you also have a card that has to continue the stories ahead of Copperbox in there. And then immediately after, less than a week after Copperbox, you have to go to Berlin for the show with GWF, Double Impact, are two consecutive nights. And then the next day you have to return for live in London. So it's crazy, man. I don't know how you're going to do all this, but I really do hope success because I enjoy RevPro's product. I believe that you guys are doing something amazing in worldwide wrestling. I'm looking forward to see what you are going to prepare in there.
Yeah, it's great, and and again, it's just an exciting time, and I think that it's all about building that momentum and then hoping we can continue that momentum. And that's why, coming out the anniversary show, and look, doing these shows that we're doing in Berlin is great because obviously we're doing them alongside GWF, which means that we can almost showcase Revolution Pro Wrestling a bit more. And use it as almost an introduction to German fans for what we're all about in that kind of showcase environment. But yeah, the whole thing is we don't want it to end. We don't want it to be like, it's not like a lot of people last year were saying the copper box is your defining moment. The copper box, it's almost like the final scene in a movie. It's like the last chapter for Revolution Pro Wrestling. But to me, I was always like, this isn't the end. This is the beginning. This is just the next step in our journey, right? And I feel so much the same this year. And you look at what we're doing coming out the copper box this year, like you say, we're going to Germany. We have got the British J Cup coming up in September. We've just announced that Global Wars UK is making a return in October, and we come into the Doncaster Dome for the very first time. So, going out into pastures new territories. And then in November, we just announced 2 nights in Coventry, Trios Grand Prix, the first annual Trios tournament in Revolution Pro Wrestling. And all of these things are just exciting things to add to our already loaded calendar. And I think that's, that energy, it's almost like, when you list off all those things that are coming, you can't help but get a little bit excited or a little bit scared and exhausted already. Like, I'm exhausted right now. God knows how I'm going to feel in a few weeks' time. But it's so exciting. It's such an exciting time to be around RevPro. It's such an exciting time for professional wrestling. And what I will say as well is that excitement, that energy, it rubs off on the wrestlers as well. And when it rubs off on the wrestlers, that enhances the quality of the shows further. And it's almost magnetic. And then the fans then get excited, and then we create that crazy atmosphere. So, like I say, it's just a fantastic time to be around RevPro. And I just can't wait. I just want to keep growing, keep moving forward. That's always been the goal. There's never been an end goal. The goal has been to see how far we can take this thing. The goal is to see how big we can make this with a DIY attitude. We don't. There's not teams and teams of people behind this. 90% of the stuff is myself on my own, and it's in terms of the behind the scenes stuff. Of course, I've got a fantastic crew of wrestlers. I've got we have a lot of people help out with the setting up of the shows, etc. But I was in Coventry yesterday. I was helping putting up the ring, putting out the chairs. I still do all of that stuff because I would never expect anyone to do something that I wouldn't do. And I'll be there at the copper box, loading the ring into the venue, building the ring, do like literally everything, every aspect of it, because it's a passion. It's something we live for. But it's it's that DIY attitude that sees us determined to keep moving forward and like I say, just keep growing it and see how big we can get this.
You just mentioned 3 big events that RevPro will hold by the next month, which are the J Cup, the Global Wars UK, Trios Grand Prix that was just announced yesterday. But can you tell us what can fans expect? Because many of those events haven't been like the Grand Prix is something new, and Global Wars is something that used to happen in the UK. So what can we expect of those events?
Expect to be very excited. So the Global Wars UK, obviously, look, it's responsible for so many huge moments over the years, and it was a shame that we kind of stopped doing those Global Wars UK shows. And obviously, the reason we did that was because I think the first year we did that was when we introduced Strong Style Evolved UK, which is where we brought over pretty much the entire New Japan roster, or like a very large chunk of the New Japan roster, which was almost like a test, a litmus test, if you will, for the Royal Quest concept of obviously just full-blown New Japan Pro Wrestling shows. And then the question became, obviously, flights became a lot more expensive, the pounds became a lot weaker, and the question became, would there be an appetite for these RevPro versus New Japan shows, with fans knowing the fact that they can get the entire New Japan roster for the Royal Quest shows. And and I feel like that's all a part of the taking it for granted. I think a lot of the time we took a lot of stuff that we had for granted, and I think that now we've kind of reached a stage whereby people look back at those Global Wars UK shows and they say, hang on a minute, we miss these great UK versus Japan or New Japan shows. We miss them. We want them back, and they look back fondly at those times. And also, so I think that's one aspect of it. And I think another aspect of it is the fact that our roster that has never been deeper. It's never been more exciting. It's never been deeper. And there's so many more dream matches that we can create. This year's Global Wars, I will say, expect us to leverage more partnerships than just our partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is going to be the most diverse Global Wars that we've ever presented. And like I say, be very excited. It's obviously going to have a heavy New Japan Pro Wrestling presence on it. But we have a lot of friends in this business, and we're going to, do what we can to create a spectacle and just, like I say, those once in a lifetime matches, unique matches that you can't see anywhere else. That's what we're going to aim to do for Global Wars UK. And of course, Doncaster Dome's a fantastic venue, and it's a venue we're very excited to, lay our hat in and kind of see how we get on there. Always exciting when we go to new territories. Obviously, the Trios Grand Prix in November. It's just something. It's an opportunity to do something exciting, an opportunity to do something a little bit different. And I think that's what we've always tried to do over the years. We've always tried to, look, our shows are, we have our style of professional wrestling. We have our style of show. I think that's one of the big things about RevPro. Some people have said it's a criticism sometimes, like, oh, you use the same roster or whatever have you. And I think that as a result of that, and I think from the outside it could look like that, but the reality is, having the same roster, it creates an identity. Revolution Pro Wrestling has a clear identity. When you go to a Revolution Pro Wrestling show, the wrestlers you can expect to see. It's not a case of just random wrestler. And there's a lot of great wrestlers that don't work for us, granted, right? But everyone who does has a place on our roster and becomes regular. They become regular members. And I think that's very important as well. But in doing that, we can explore new and exciting ways to highlight those regular talents, rather than just running the same show. So I don't know, it's just a unique opportunity for us, and to do something a little bit different and something that you don't see every day, and hopefully something that fans want to travel to come and see, and something that, again, we're very serious. We love this Coventry venue. We love the HMV Empire in Coventry. We're trying to deliver big cards there. It's a great looking venue. It's a area of the country we don't often service. And being kind of in the Midlands area, it's halfway between the north and south, so it's great for us because it means that there's a bit of crossover potential there as well. So it's just all about growth. And like I say, presenting exciting products and going back to what I said earlier about doing it through the eyes of a fan.
That's awesome. Also, with the Global Wars returning to the UK, which was also an event that was held before by Ring of Honor and New Japan so many years ago. And this concept of the Forbidden Door that New Japan and AEW have been developing with their unique show. And now we have this big show in the Tokyo Dome, January 5th, Wrestle Dynasty. So maybe this is like testing the ground, have those. I don't know. I'm just speculating, I don't expect you to tell me anything, but I believe that this will be like a taste for the European fans that might go to the Wrestle Dynasty show in the Tokyo Dome next year. Of what can they expect? These dream matches, these unique matches between interpromotional talent that you might not see so often in the United Kingdom or in Europe in general. So I believe that's something to be excited about. And also, RevPro, like you're having this show in Germany. I believe it's the first time that RevPro has a show in Germany. And this year you also had a show in Spain, in Barcelona, which was also the first time you held a show in Spain. So do you have any interest or plans to have a show in any other country in Europe? Maybe not in Europe?
Yeah, well, look, we always say, everyone asks the questions in the Q&As, will you come to so-and-so? Will you come to so-and-so? We want to go everywhere. Loved Barcelona. I would love to go back to Barcelona. I think it was fantastic. I loved meeting all the crew, all the wrestlers, all the trainees, all the fans. I thought there was a real unique energy, and I think the Spanish wrestling scene is a scene that is in the early stages, but you can see the talents there, you can see the desires there. I'd love to be able to help the Spanish wrestling scene grow. It reminds me of me when I was starting out many years ago. However, I think that the ground level that you're working with is a lot higher than where I started off, which to me suggests that there's just so much potential there. I can't speak with confidence or education about other territories around Europe and the world, but we would love to go everywhere, and not necessarily we'd love to go places and just run our RevPro shows and get people excited about RevPro. But honestly, when I was in Barcelona, to me it just felt like I want to help the Spanish wrestling scene, just because it just reminded me a lot of what I'm all about. Grassroots wrestling, and then you see that in RevPro. You see the talent we develop, the talent we bring through. Your likes of your JJ Gales, your likes of your Cameron Kais, Will Cavens, who are kind of emerging talents right now. So I like that a lot. I'm not saying that that's our goal to go to every single territory we go and go, we need to help this territory, but I just got that vibe from Spain. I got that vibe from Barcelona. I liked it a lot. But yeah, we'd love to go everywhere. We really would. And as far as, I think the start of the question, it was about, what can people expect? Is it going to be like Wrestle Dynasty? I honestly, and there shouldn't be any expectation from RevPro's perspective. What we are trying to do is continue to do what we've always done, which is produce the best wrestling shows we possibly can. Obviously, we're not involved in that show in Japan, and I would have loved to have been involved in that, but like shows like this will at least bring us into the conversation, because I believe wholeheartedly that our roster is one of the most talented rosters in the world today, and the more we can do to get eyeballs on it, the better. Occasions like Summer Sizzler, occasions like the Copper Box Arena, occasions like Global Wars UK, they're the types of things that bring the eyeballs onto the stars of RevPro, and stars of British and European wrestling. And that's what we want to do. We want to provide that platform and use that platform to grow.
Yes, and also the Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship is one of the most prestigious world championships or top championships of any promotion in the world. It has been defended in Japan a few times, also in the United States. So I believe it's something that can happen in the future. And like you said, I believe it's also important that fans support Global Wars, because it's something that will show the world that, yeah, they can do exciting things here. They can do something even more exciting in a bigger stage And also, like you mentioned, the Barcelona show before, you had some Spanish wrestlers and also a Portuguese wrestler compete for the first time in a repro show in there. You had Sosaya, who had that classic match with Michael Oku. You had Iker Navarro, you had Cito Sanchez, Joey Torres, the Barcelona Blacklist. You had Golden Boy Santos from Portugal. And now you have both Santos and Sosaya as regular members of Repro. They are competing. They have been announced for Summer Sizzler. So how have it been for you to work with this new challenge?
Well, it's fantastic, and that's the thing about professional wrestling. Like seeing, when new talent comes in, they just bring something different. When you can't just base out of what you're doing all the time, because the thing about wrestling, the thing about stars is a uniqueness about them, and they bring something different to the table that we don't currently have, and they're doing very, very well. Like obviously Zazaya especially has been creating headlines everywhere he goes, and no doubt is someone who can be. So I look at the UK scene. We always look at our wrestlers like the great exports, like Doug Williams, like Zack Sabre Jr., like Will Ospreay. Zazaya can be one of those guys for Spanish professional wrestling. He always wears the flag of Spain on his jacket when comes out to the ring. He's very proud of his Spanish heritage, and I genuinely believe that's going to also further encourage the Spanish wrestling scene as well. But not just that, the lessons that he learns when he's going in there with Luke Jacobs and Michael Okus and people like that, Ricky Knight Jr.'s, he's able to then take back to Spain and able to take back to that group of people and share that knowledge and help them grow as well. So that's fantastic. Everyone else is, everyone who competed on that show in Barcelona is, very, very good. And like, certainly I'd love to be part of my plans moving forward. Obviously, when we do the Great British Tag League, I'm sure you can look for the Barcelona Blacklist to be involved in that. Iker Navarro, he was obviously, he's come over and competed against Robbie X for us as well. I'm sure it's not going to be the last you see of him as well. And I'm sure there's a whole wealth of talent. We can't showcase everyone, but I'd love to work with them all. I'd love to be able to see what everyone else is about. But like it's exciting to see there is that fresh crop of talent elsewhere as well. When you've got more places to pick from about what talent you use, that's when it becomes more exciting. When places are hard, basically when there's competition for places, that's what breeds success. People can't get complacent because there's someone waiting to take their place, and that's just the way all sports and entertainment works, really. So yeah, it's great to be working with those guys, and I do think it's great to see. So for example, Zazaya and Golden Boy Santos, if we hadn't run that show in April in Barcelona, they wouldn't be on the shows now, right? And you look at those moments that both of them have created some great moments, but none of that would have happened without that show in Barcelona. So, that's why I love going to these places. That's why I want to go to all these places. That's why I want to keep making stuff happen, because even if we're dedicating stuff, so fans in the UK might be like, oh, well, you're doing cool stuff in Spain, you're doing cool stuff in Germany, etc. Well, that's great, right? But us going out and doing that allows us to bring even more cool stuff back to the UK. So I just love it. I love it. And I kind of feel that obviously us kind of doing that with those guys, that's very similar to what we would like to do when we do a Global Wars UK and we put our guys up against New Japan's best and many other the top talents, and we want to get their attention.
That's awesome. And now we know that we have to look forward to see many other Iberian wrestlers, Spanish and Portuguese wrestlers. We just had a spoiler. We might see the Barcelona Blacklist in the tag league later this year. So that would be really cool. Also, that reminds me of something that happened, if I'm not wrong, at Global Wars in UK some years ago when Okada wrestled Ospreay. So that's also the match that allowed Ospreay to go to New Japan. So that's really important that different promotions tour outside of their home country to see worldwide talent. You don't know what you might find, and maybe you can bring something exciting to your product. So that's really important, business-wise. Yeah. Also, I wanted to know if you have specific goals for the future.
No, like I said earlier, like it's not really about creating specific goals. Like I want to just continue all movement, wanting to keep moving forward, wanting to keep progressing. I don't ever want to get stagnant. I don't ever want to get comfortable. I want to keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Because when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, that's when good things tend to happen. And like I say, I just want to continue to grow it and like see how far we can take it. And I genuinely believe, no one believes in the product more than me. No one believes in the professional wrestlers that we have competing for us more than me. And I just want the world to be able to see that. And I think that once people start to see it, you know, I think the product speaks for itself. That's the thing. And that's at times, that's the most frustrating thing. You know, the product speaks for itself. If we had a production company get behind us, or a TV company get behind us, or a streaming service get behind us, you know, who want to invest real money into this, then who knows how far we could grow it? Because the reality of the situation is, look what we've achieved, right? Look what we've achieved on a shoestring budget. We have to be sustainable. We have to take baby steps. We have to walk and not run. We have to reinvest every single penny we make. When we lose money, we have to make that money back. We've survived COVID, you know, and we clawed our way back from there and grown, and we've defied all odds time after time after time. And to be able to do that with literally nothing but goodwill and determination shows you the potential that this whole thing has. So ultimately, I just hope we can continue to fulfill that potential, can continue to move forward, and obviously we have the commitment of doing it step by step by step by step, and we just hope that along the way someone comes along and gives us a load of cash, or you know, gives us a bit of an injection, you know, to push it forward. They always say luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. We're prepared, we're just waiting for that opportunity now, you know, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to strive to move forward, and I just hope that everyone who's invested, everyone who's watching, everyone who's been to a show, bought a piece of merchandise, watched on demand, I hope they understand they're just as integral, just as important to this whole journey. I always say it's one fan at a time, one fan at a time, one fan at a time, because that's where we're at. One fan at a time. We are creating new fans, they're telling their friends, who are in turn telling their friends, and we're growing one fan at a time. Relationships with other promotions help that, absolutely. But the same way I said, you know, when I said to you, I won't take credit for any talent who kind of gets to that next step. So for example, Will Ospreay, wouldn't take credit for him, but we gave him the platform. Global Wars UK was Will Ospreay's platform. He did all the hard work. When he got to Japan, it was down to him to do all the hard work. That's why I'd never take credit for it. But what I will say is I knew that if he was in front of the right people, he would excel. And I can say that about Revolution Pro Wrestling as a whole. We get in front of the right people, we will excel. It's a great product, it's a premium product, and I think that a testament to it is when people say stuff like, oh, your production's like, you know, they compare our production to like a AEW or a WWE or whatever, you know, like it's a compliment more than anything. You know, they might think that they're slagging it off, but I'm just like, you know, at the end of the day, people are investing in this thing. And we are so low in terms of levels of where we can get to, because we are doing this on nothing. And if we had something, we could create even more. And if we don't, it'd just take us a little bit longer to get there. But we've got that determination, drive, and passion. And when you have that, it's very hard to stop you.
Yes, it's like you said, imagine all the possibilities. If an indie product like this one is this good, imagine if you had an even bigger budget. It would be crazy. And then I wanted to discuss about you, like outside of wrestling, because I believe that it's really clear now to everyone that has been watching this that you are in love with pro wrestling, and that drives you, that motivates you, and that's why RevPro is at this level right now, 12 years after. But what do you like besides wrestling? What are your hobbies?
It's spending time with my family, really. I've got a 6-year-old son, wife, 2 dogs and a cat. And I like spending time with them, you know. I've always said, like, it's important to have a life outside the wrestling bubble as well. because it helps you within the wrestling bubble also. I think a lot of people get so consumed within that bubble that is professional wrestling, that they can't see out of it, and I think that that's very important to remain balanced as well. And that's it. I'm quite, I guess, I'm really quite a boring person, I guess, like I just want to provide for my family, and I want to create a legacy. Life's too short, I don't want regrets. Stuff helps, change your mindset on life as you get older and stuff happens. Your priorities kind of change and everything. But like, I'm big on legacy. I want to leave a legacy behind, be it through my son or be it through professional wrestling. I want to make sure my fingerprints are kind of all over this world in some way, shape or form. But yeah, I just, outside of wrestling, like I say, it's just my family, just doing, I like going on holidays. I like doing nothing, I like watching TV. I like being fulfilled, and I think that the fulfillment can come in many different ways, shapes and forms. Unfortunately for me, I'm just obsessed with this pro wrestling thing. But like I say, like I've got a life outside of that bubble as well. And I always try to maintain that balance.
That's great, because it's hard actually. Because like you mentioned before, you do a lot of stuff in RevPro. You are not just the owner or the booker or the promoter. You do many daily life things.
Yeah, I kind of look at that like it's like a job, So like it's the same way that you go to a job, you work to be able to, you work to live, right? You don't live to work, you work to live. You try to earn money so you can do nice things, you can do things you enjoy, etc. So I'm kind of very much the same, that I'm working to live, but like when my mindset of doing all that extra work with RevPro, in printing the seat labels, just doing the thankless tasks, my mindset for that is I'm working so that RevPro can live. And when RevPro lives, in return, I can then live, so it's like, it's just that kind of mindset, right? So it is hard, don't get me wrong. Like, the hardest part about it is, because I always hear people say, I think a lot of people fall off because they forget why they got into it in the first place. I always say, if you look at my Twitter, my personal Twitter page, you look at the top tweet, which is pinned, it says always follow your dreams or something like that. And it's a picture of me as a child playing with wrestling toys. Now, the reason that's there, and I've told this story before, the reason that's there is because this world is not very nice, right? The wrestling world is tough as well. It's a thankless job. People are very unnecessarily horrible towards you, when all you're trying to do is your best. All you're trying to do is entertain the people. All you're trying to do is a good thing, right? And stuff happens along the way, be it, I don't know, it could be like wrestling, feeling that you're underappreciated. It could be that you run a show and you lose a ton of money. It could be that you're just overworked, tired, you don't want to do any more manual labor, lifting the rings, etc. It could be all of those things combined. But you have to remember why you got into it in the first place. Ask yourself a question. If you told that child in that picture that you're doing what you're doing right now, would that child be happy? And I think that that's so important as well. And I say that to wrestlers as well. When they're on their journey, they have setbacks all the time. The closer they get to achieving their goals, the harder it feels, the further away they feel, because they can't see it's right in front of their face. They just have to do that last little bit of work to push themselves over the line. And it can be frustrating, and I appreciate and understand that. But in those times, you have to remember why you got into it in the first place. And I think ultimately, aside from those from the performance center who got in as high-level elite athletes who just want a career, a high-paying career, perhaps some fame, every single person, be it a fan of wrestling, be it a journalist, be it a staffer, a referee, a wrestler, a promoter, a booker, whatever your role in wrestling is, the reason you got in there in the first place is because you're a fan of professional wrestling. It's not like any other job. It's not like where you say like, oh, if I work in banking, I can be rich. It's not like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. No one's like, oh, I want to be a professional wrestler because it's got great health benefits and I'm going to earn a ton of money. That's not why you do it. You do it because of a passion. You do it because of a fan. And you have to remind yourself of those moments.
Thank you for telling me that, Andy. It's always important to fight for your dreams. It can be hard, but you should never forget about that. Finally, I wanted to know if you have any message for the fans of the RevPro product.
My main message is thank you to any fan of the RevPro product, because like I said, like without the fans, there's no professional wrestling. We felt how hard it was during COVID, and we felt what an integral part the fans were for us. And every single penny invested in Revolution Pro Wrestling, if it's on a ticket, if it's on a t-shirt, if it's on an on-demand subscription, every single penny contributes towards our survival. I made a joke about the early days of RevPro, saying that anyone who bought a ticket to a show, so we were the first promotion. It's like crazy when I kind of think about it, how when you look at ticket prices, what we can charge now for our premium product, which I believe is worth every penny and more. And when you look at it compared to other forms of entertainment, we're a very cheap form of entertainment, but we were the first company to charge a premium price for our front row tickets. And there was a lot of pushback at the time when we started doing that, but people still bought those tickets. And if it wasn't for those people, we would not have been able to do what we were able to do. We would not have been able to survive. And in those days, literally every single ticket was a difference between survival and going out of business. Mm-hmm. And it's still very much like that, but just on a slightly bigger basis. And now every single person's support contributes towards our growth, because every penny counts, every fan counts. And we can't do it without you. And again, the reason we do it is you fans as well. Because like I say, like people say to me all the time, if you focus this much energy, this much attention into anything else right now, you could be a millionaire, right? But I wouldn't be happy, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing is, we do this for a passion. We do it because we're fans, and we are fans. You are fans. We are all one. We are all whole. We are all fans. And I appreciate every single one of you. And with your support, we can continue to make this grow. So please, just if you can support however you can, it's great. If you can't afford to support it monetarily, support it by telling someone else about it. Encourage your friends to watch us, you know. And like I say, one fan at a time, we'll grow it. And anyone who's been with us on this journey, be it if you're just tuning in right now or you've been here since day one, 12 years ago, we wouldn't be able to be where we are without you. And it's genuinely appreciated. This is not like some kind of sales pitch. I'm not here saying buy. And you know, I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's ass. You know, I'm not pretending we're all friends. I'm just saying, you know, from the bottom of my heart, the reason we do this is the fans. And we wouldn't be able to do this without the fans. So thank you for everything. And please just continue to support exactly what we're doing.
Okay, thank you so much, Andy. It was a pleasure to have you here. I hope Summer Sizzler and all the events going after that one are a success. Really good luck with the anniversary show. It's like the biggest show right now. So good luck with that. All my best wishes, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we can catch up soon.
Ok, eso ha sido todo por hoy, amigos. Hasta la próxima.